have you think about how to teach it to your students or what you can apply. So I just want to hear from everyone, because there's, we have 5 here right now. Erin will be back. Did Erin come back?
No.
Erin hasn't come back yet.
Okay.
So
Anyways, so we can have everyone go and pick one or the other and think about, you can either maybe give some practices to do to help people connect with it, or think about, you may not have to teach it, but kind of let us know how you would teach it. Trying to just give you 10 minutes to kind of pull that together.
Teach what?
The wheel of karma or dharma, the 4 points. How would you approach that? You're all teaching in different situations. So what situation would you use that in? How would you, bring the concepts about? What would you want to do?
You mean teaching through a sequence or just?
No,
teaching?
just
teaching.
Like this class.
If you had to teach teacher training and you had to teach the wheel of karma, that might be one situation, or, yeah. Or if you were working with one-on-one clients, it might be different. You might think about, maybe dharma or framing it in a certain way to meet your clientele.
what page was that dang wheel?
you get
Where
it?
is that? It's
Hold on,
one, was it 115? Or was that a different? No, that was Wheel of Karma.
It was right after the Bhagavad
Here
Gita.
it is, it's
There you
70.
go. 70.
My kid Looks
Oh
like a
my-
hairy monster, I still can't read them. 70, huh? I'm really falling short on this. This one.
You can probably stop recording.
Oh,
Just
right.
because-
Want me to pause it?
Okay. You're probably all familiar with the Prana Vayus to some extent from 200 hour, correct?
Mhm.
Or maybe workshops that you've taken or something that you've done, okay? So, the idea, we really looked at prana last night and, you know, it's very easy to say, oh, prana, life force. But we can now see that it's actually a lot more, there's a lot more depth than just life force. Okay? And because we've been working with the chakras, we have worked a little bit on subtle body already. So we know that this prana works in, it flows. It's a pulsation and it flows. And we've talked about it flowing in nadis. Correct. Correct. And having the intersection of nadis create these, like, a vortex of energy. And it does work like that. And it also works like more broad patterns of energy. So I think I told you when we were talking about the chakras that, you know, we have this pattern for prana that is kind of like a crisscross, and where it crosses the chakras are along the spine. That's one way. You know, Ida Pingala, flow and cross over, and then you have Sushumna in the middle. And then you also have a broad kind of band of energy for each of them. Ida Pingala this way, it's like a bow. So it moves like this, but there's also a general flow like this. And it's not one or the other, it's both. The same. So the same thing's going to happen with all of the nadis. The prana flows through nadis, but there's also kind of big, broad patterns of energy moving in different ways. And these are the Prana Vayus. So prana, and the main thing, and this is where I've also let you know that the Prana Vayus are also the subdivisions of Vata for Ayurveda.
Subdivisions of Vata.
And then one of the characteristics of Vata is it moves. So everything that moves is this energy. And so the Prana Vayus, Vayu means wind, and it's also the same root as
Means
Vata. Wind.
When? Okay.
It's also the same root as Vata.
Oh,
So you have more or less the same word. So you have these kind of broad patterns of energy in the body, and they govern different functioning of the body. So, and what we do in yoga is we learn how the energy moves, and we learn different poses to rebalance and activate the different vayus. And then we also learn a little bit more effectively how to guide the movement of those energies through the bandhas and pranayama. So if you wanted to look at a way to teach people, you know, we first have to become aware of prana, which we were talking about last night. Like, how do we make that jump for people? And then we have to become sensitive to the different ways it moves in the body, what processes the prana vayu will govern. And then, you know, then that gives you a little bit more of a clue of, you know, how to design sequencing, or what a person is dealing with and what kind of postures are going to help to rebalance their energy on a subtle level. And then we're always using the bandhas. Once we become sensitive, and we can, like we were saying today when we did Janu Shirshasana, you know, there's some containment around that. We pushed through the legs to feel that lift up through Mula Bandha, and even Uddiyana Bandha, and the head was bent, so Jalandhara Bandha was engaged too. So a lot of the seated poses, you're using all of the bandhas to actually work energetically with the poses. And you can, like I didn't say that today, you don't have to say that, but you know what you're doing, you know, when you're doing a pose and when you're teaching. Okay, so what we would do is look at all, and you have these in your manual, starting on page 107 starts the Prana Vayus. And then, you know, we go into each one. So I figured we would talk a little bit about each one, what they govern, what kind of things they govern, and what kind of poses help to rebalance, what kind of pranayama, what kind of, you know, cleansing practices. The Shakriyas, you may know, the 6 cleansing practices in yoga, like the neti pot, Kapalabhati, Basti, there's 6 of them, Tratika. They're actually working to clear out the nadis, cleanse, purify, and create more of a pathway for prana to flow.
Are those listed in here?
No.
Oh, 108.
Oh,
What's that? Were those the
The
Shakriyas?
Shakriyas.
No, but I will get them for you.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, when you think about someone's nadis, first of all, they're not physical. They're energetic, but we have a sense, like even nadi shodhana, that's channel purification. What we're trying to do is clear out anything that's stuck or obstructing or creating imbalance in the nadis, so prana can flow a little bit better.
And that's what the Shakriyas are, the cleansing.
There are cleansing practices, like Ayurveda has Panchakarma, which is the 5 actions. Yoga, a more classical yoga is the Shakriyas, the 6 cleansing actions.
What about Kundalini? Does that fit in there with the Shakriya?
Kundalini is a practice that really does work with the subtle body. They are working on clearing out nadis, and they call them kriyas, which means kriya is another word. It's actually the same root as karma, weirdly enough. So it's an action. So when you talk about the Shakriyas, you're talking about 6 cleansing actions. So every asana, in a way, is aiming to open up pranic channels and let energy flow. But these are just a way, like the Shakriyas are a way to think about that a little bit more subtly. Like the neti pot is one. You're definitely clearing out mucus and congestion, whatever's in the way there, but it's meant to be cleansing on a more subtle level as well.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. We're talking about the Prana Vayus, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Prana Vayus are just the way that we direct prana. It's just,
Prana Vayus are the way that prana flows in the body.
so it's just
Right,
in
yeah.
general, Prana Vayu applies to any practice that does that.
No, there are
Yes.
5.
Right. So,
So we're gonna go over what the 5 are, and hopefully that'll make it,
easier.
yeah. I mean, I'm saying like nadis, it's not really like there's just energy flowing this way. I mean, you're a whole person. So we break things down to understand them, but that is not really, it's like the functions of the mind we talked about with the anatomy of the mind, the chitta and the ahamkara, excuse me. They're not really divided, but you know, we take them apart so we can understand them. These are energy,
Like north, south, east, west almost. like-
sort of, yes,
So there's 5.
but there's 5.
Okay.
Let's just start. And this is the very first start. They're called the Prana Vayus. The very first subdivision of prana is prana. So that's just silly that they couldn't have come up with another name, but what we do to distinguish it is we have the big P prana, which is all of the pranas, and we use a little p for,
This
yeah, this one. So does anyone know anything about this one yet?
I can't remember. Is it all over? Like it,
Okay,
And
no,
there's-
it's not. That
is
is
it-
one of them, but
Okay.
where do we find this energy mostly located?
is also making me think of chessboard pieces, like is this the queen of the chessboard or?
No, yeah, no, they're, this one's important, but they're all important.
well, is it here because of the, or is it here?
Oh my goodness, does anyone know?
Because of the, I think,
Okay,
I.
so prana is the inward flowing
Inward.
energy.
Where's that go?
So it really is located a lot around the heart and the lungs,
Okay.
Okay.
but it's also in the head. So when we think about taking energy in, we mostly do it through our breath, right? But there's a movement flowing in, and I said prana flows in and down. Well, it does, you know, when we're, so,
That's big P prana.
no, this little p.
Little p.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Little P is the prana.
Yeah, so
Vayus?
it's inner, yeah, little p is the prana vayu. It's an
Okay.
inward moving energy.
Okay.
It governs our respiration. And in specifically our inspiration. So our inhale. So it's gonna govern the way we're taking energy into our bodies.
Is it also, you know, what we see and what we hear, that whatever comes in? Or are we talking mostly?
In a
both?
way, yes,
Okay.
that does affect, but yeah, yeah, that would definitely affect our prana vayu.
Okay,
When we're talking about inhalation and inspiration, we also mean that too.
okay.
So feeling inspired, having enthusiasm, motivation. And remember, Manipura is the prana hub. And that's where we would find our motivation. So it's mostly around the heart and the lungs, but prana is pervading everywhere. And this inward moving energy is responsible for our feeling of being inspired. In the heart, it's, you know, having that, you know, feeling full of heart, you know, you have to have your heart in it. And it's closely, they say prana is closely heart and mind connected. Like, you know, if the mind is down or, you know, just sluggish or whatever, that can be a problem of prana vayu. Okay. And you can look here, let's see what it says here. It says something to support what you said, Susanna. So first of all, the fundamental energizing force, inward moving energy, governs respiration and reception, most active in the region of the lungs and the heart, provides propulsive energy, speed, motivation, and vitality. So you see this, it's what it animates almost us, you know, how animated or how full of life we are is prana vayu.
Like that.
Gives heightened sensitivity to the external senses and supports inner awareness. So what you were saying, Susanna, about like how you're taking things in,
Yeah.
Mhm.
that's really supported right here.
Okay.
When in balance, we see the world in all its brightness and possibility and are able to experience a feeling of contentment and an inner focus. So things are looking good. When out of balance, we suffer from cravings, become driven by negative habits, and struggle with a restless, dissipated mind.
Vata.
We're all binging on the chocolate. It's like,
Yeah, yeah. And
it's almost like a feeling of not being connected, like a
Mhm.
disconnect. Like you're not connected to that inner focus, you're not connected. But it also can be like when you see it in yourself or students, like when I know I'm gonna work on Prana Vayus, it's when I feel sluggish, or I feel like just not motivated to do anything, and I need a little extra inspiration. Feeling disconnected is, and a lot of times we do, like if we've been practicing yoga for a while, which we all have, there are times where you feel more connected and wanting to do your practice and wanting to teach than others. And so it's good to be able to have a self-awareness to say, oh my gosh, I'm not feeling it today. What could I do? Well, I could go to a class myself.
Yeah.
I could, learn something new. So what do we do to help Prana Vayus? Those are all things, but then there are also asana that help to balance and support Prana Vayus. So a lot of it has to do with energizing and extending through the upper body. And the other thing that is really balancing for Prana Vayus is doing things where you push through the hands, both hands at the same time.
Because it's at the chest level.
Or even above, like downward dog is one that you can use for to rebalance Prana Vayus. What we did, these side bends,
Yeah.
we did like a couple different ones today, and we'll look at the sequence again tomorrow. But those all help to stimulate Prana Vayus and regulate it. So like I said last night, there is this idea when just by living in the stresses of life, our energetic field gets a little dysregulated at times. And so one way to regulate is to address the Prana Vayus. And what I want you to start thinking about is, how could you just, if you had someone who came in and was uninspired, what are some poses you could give them? You don't even have to tell them that, but what are some poses you can give them to make them feel more alive and connected?
Like Warrior One?
No, not for this one. For this one, we're going to be doing side bending, like side angle.
Okay.
We're gonna just a side bend. It doesn't even have to be a pose, but every time you reach and activate, you're stimulating prana. Cat cow with the emphasis of pushing through the hands. Plank pose, downward dog. Those all stimulate Prana Vayus.
Anything that you're pushing through the hands.
Yes.
Extend.
Yes.
So certainly, I can't remember the Sanskrit for handstand right
Shirshasana.
now. Shirshasana.
Yeah. Well, that has to do with another one too, but yes.
Yeah.
Two of them go,
That would be
they
great.
pair together or they triple together a lot. So we'll talk about the ones that kind of go together, and a lot of the poses are the same. So yeah, arm balances, crow pose, where you're pushing down through the hands and really stimulating. One of my favorites to do is, if this is, this is one I go to all the time, is just up dog to down dog.
You gave me that in my little quick thing for my low back.
Yep. Yeah.
And I like doing that. That's really energizing.
It's really energizing. So
Yeah.
you're seeing, okay, this is the energetic effect of this. How do you feel when you do those things?
What about seal?
Seal. I'm blanking on seal.
So you put your hands in front of you.
Oh, seal, like
Hands
the
are
yin
here.
pose.
So you're
Okay.
pushing through.
Yeah,
Does that
yes.
qualify?
Yeah.
It's Maggie.
Yeah. Mhm. Yes.
I have a coworker who on Monday, she was like, she's usually pretty chipper, and she said she just feels like she's not even, almost disassociated. Not quite that bad, but I just wonder if she just feels like out of it, she says. And I wonder if that's, not that I'm gonna go teach her a class, but I'm just thinking of her as a person who might.
Yeah, I
benefit
mean,
from-
when someone's saying, I just feel out of it or I feel disconnected, I mean, yeah, I would think Prana Vayus, but I would also think energy, like
Mhm.
low energy, like high energy, like, yeah, they're fragmented,
Yeah,
they're fragmented. I might do a couple different things. I might do that, and I might do like more Prana Vayus, which is, we'll talk about, it's abdominal stuff.
okay.
I might put them together, you know, but yeah, definitely when you're hearing disconnect or disheartened because it's around the heart,
Yes,
that's when you're gonna think of Prana Vayus.
Prana Vayus, yeah.
Yeah. So do you have an idea of poses? You have like, you know, this pushing through the hands or activating, opening up the side body
Mhm.
helps with prana. The pranayama that's really beneficial is Vastrika breath. So you all know that for
Mhm.
sure. So yeah, that's the one that really enlivens things. It builds, I mean, you know, fire in the body.
Mhm.
So it enlivens, and that's what we would use for Prana Vayus. And because of its presence with inspiration and in the head, it's part of the prana that's in the head, we might do neti pot as the cleansing.
Do lots of private clients do that? Can you get them to do the netting pot?
Oh, yeah, the neti pot is not hard. And actually, I was saying the tongue scraper, sometimes the tongue scraper is not really that hard. People, I mean, those are the easy ones. It's when you say, oh, you know, for a Vata person, stop with the chips in the afternoon. Now, that's the hard one.
That's the hard one. What do you think with COVID, and do you think Prana Vayus is really needed? The
Yes.
Balancing, because I just feel like,
Thinking of my mom all over this.
yeah,
Well, one of the things, I was talking to Kate Rosenthal the other day. She's one of our teachers here, but she's been MIA.
Yeah, she
So I was
has.
like, okay, where's Kate? And you know, we were talking about, Mona and I were talking about her, and then she texted me the next day. And we were talking about COVID, and she's really suffering from like just COVID, like and she said there was this article in the New York Times where the word they're using for people in COVID is languishing, like as opposed to flourishing.
Oh.
And then really having trouble. Languishing is the middle. It's like the kind of hanging on, not like
Yeah.
just can't get it, almost like third chakra issue, but
Mhm.
also just disconnect.
Yeah,
Purgatory.
Yeah.
People are kind of traumatized,
Yeah, for
really they
sure.
are,
Yeah.
overall.
Do you guys, has anyone ever watched that series Alone where people go out and live in the wilderness?
yes,
Yeah.
that is really
And all of us have
interesting.
kind of been experiencing that, which if you read some of like the books about like Revelation, about like all the stuff that we're experiencing, or you know, the old indigenous theories or fables about this time, people living in two different kind of dimensions at the same time, like
Yeah,
all of that.
Yeah.
happening.
it's a really neat show.
Revelations. Yeah, it really is.
Okay. So
But it makes us focus on ourselves though, right? And kind of, because we can't, the external has changed so much. All that's left is,
Except for the people who are connected to all these
right, and that's what's
disinformation
happening, is that
channels.
there are some people who are choosing, you know what, this time is the time I'm gonna go within and figure myself out. And other people are like, this is insanity. I must try to control, Trump won the election, you know, it's just,
yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a power struggle right now.
yeah.
And talk about the third chakra, we are in a power struggle, and it's but you know, this is why we have our yoga practice, this is why we do it, and I still say probably the most effective thing that we can do ever is just to connect with prana. So diaphragmatic breathing, crocodile pose, and that breath aligned movement is going to be so useful just to let people know that there is another option and to remind ourselves, because we forget to. Yeah.
Question about crocodile, can you throw a sandbag down low on the back?
On the back,
Probably not, right?
I wouldn't.
Because of the kidneys,
Yeah, and just because
too much?
it's not needed.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, there's a tendency in crocodile to push anyways and create a little extra efforts. Because you know, you're saying, feel your belly press into the floor. So of course, people are pushing their belly into the floor. And it needs, and that's okay at first, but you want it to be softer than that.
So if you're on your back, is the proper place right below the navel center?
The proper place is in between where the bones are, above the hip bones and below the rib cage. So it's not on bones. So we want to, and it might be on bones a little bit, but depending on the person, but you want it to be where there's not bones. In the center of that.
What if you're putting
Sandbags.
sandbag on the stomach when you're on your back? Okay, right.
Yeah.
Have you ever had anyone put sandbags on the shoulders?
I
Yeah,
have,
I
it's
love
awesome,
that.
and that
That's
feels
kinda
really
nice.
good, yeah, yes, it does. Okay. Well, let's move on. Next one is Prana Vayus. Up, no, down. It's downward flowing energy.
Udana is up
Udana
because
is up.
you up.
Oh.
Yeah, we know from Ujjayi, U is up, but Apana is down. A-P-A-N-A, and we're on page 109 here. So this is, as Prana Vayus is, really active, let's say active around the heart and the lungs. Prana Vayus is really active around the pelvis because it governs elimination or the letting go of things that we don't need or getting the stuff out of our system, whether it's urinating, pooping, peeing, having babies, having menstruation, or anything that needs to come out and down, whatever, is going to be governed by Prana Vayus. Anything where we get waste out. So sweating is also Prana Vayus, even though it seems weird, it's not in the pelvis, but it is a function of.
What about vomiting?
Vomiting is a Prana Vayus.
Thanks for that image.
Think of a little poison guy.
It comes out first.
What about things like,
I hate vomiting.
trying to think of something that might be like downward exertion that's not like gross, right? Like it's not like.
Well, I mean, we say it's gross because it's thing our body doesn't need coming out, but it's really just food that's been in our system and gone through,
So is that
or
part of it? It's kind of like energy being recycled out as it's already been used, like,
we've taken what we could from it.
right? So
And it's the part that we don't need.
no longer need it.
So
No
is
longer
it toxin?
What's that?
Is it purely toxins?
No, because I mean, we do have babies too.
I guess
Yeah,
it's
I don't
worried
think we
about-
would think about those
I was
as toxins.
worried about
But
the
a baby
baby.
is exiting, so does it have more to do with like entropy with this energy? Like it's sort of like how it changes and,
What do you mean by that? I'm not quite sure.
well, entropy is kind of like when you break an egg, you can't put the egg back together. Like it's sort of like,
It can be, but not really, because things can get stuck in the way. Like if there's a problem with a Prana Vayus, you can feel constipated,
okay,
or you can have diarrhea. Like you can have a dysregulation of that movement.
So-
There can be an issue with the whole urinary tract. Like, I mean, you think that's our filtered blood. So that's, cleansing. There can be a breakdown of that along the way, and that would be
sure.
a Prana Vayus. Yeah.
I guess I'm having a hard time connecting with the energy of birthing a baby, the energy of like sweating or getting excrement. out
Well,
of
you
the
have to
baby.
have a really
Wow.
downward force to get the baby out.
Right.
Your
So-
body contracts, your uterus contracts, your cervix opens
I
so
guess I'm
that it
trying to
can
think
go
about
down.
entropy because it's kind of like the end of a situation where it's completely changed into something else too. Like when you give birth, and that's how my brain is like combining the experience of energy of birthing a baby and pooping at the same time. Because they honestly kind of feel the same. And
They do.
they
And
really,
sometimes poop and birth.
but one is eliminating waste and the other one is,
It's also eliminating waste because whatever stage the baby is, if it's
Yeah.
not wanted by the body or the mind
Right.
anymore, it needs to come down and out.
so I guess that's it. It's the body no longer needs whatever Apana
It's
is.
not suitable to be holding that
Gotcha.
anymore. Make
Let
sense?
it go energy.
Yeah. Yeah, so even ideas,
Mhm.
like
Like when you
when you have
perseverate.
you have a perception and a sense perception, you take in, say, someone says something to you, you take it in, you digest it, you assimilate what's useful, and then you let go of what's not. So the ability to let it go, the Frozen song is Prana Vayus, let it go.
Mhm.
An important ability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And,
So prana's like receiving and apana's like letting it go.
prana is like moving in, and apana is like governing everything that needs to move down or out. And interestingly enough, like we think about Mula Bandha, but actually Mula Bandha, and we will get into the bandhas, is redirecting the natural functioning of apana. So we're actually going against what apana usually does and redirecting the energy back up.
Okay.
So the thing is, like I've had friends in this practice that have, learned Mula Bandha and they want to hold it all the time. In the grocery store, they just walk around with Mula Bandha engaged. And that might not be useful because the natural flow is downward for apana.
Mhm.
Like that's why we don't do inversions when we're on our period, because we need the energy to flow down.
Mhm.
And even at a very subtle level, that can be disturbed by drawing energy up. So if you're on your period and you keep doing Mula Bandha and Uddiyana Bandha, you might stop your cycle. Has anyone had that happen? No? Yes, I have. I have to be very careful. Yeah, because I'm used to doing those practices and it's easy to go to them and then I'm like, yeah, it's so it's important that when that apana governs downward flowing, and it's not that we wanna, when we're working with prana and redirecting it, we wanna use it, but at other times, we wanna let apana do its job. It's really important. Okay, so when we let go of things that are not needed by our body anymore or our mind, we feel grounded. We feel safe, stable.
And that's why it says the anchoring breath
Um,
at the top. I was just wondering why it says.
Yeah, it is
anchoring.
anchoring. And we can look here, when balanced, we feel rooted and grounded and have a positive outlook on life. Supports the immune system by eliminating anything that is threatening to good health. That's a good way to think about it as far as childbirth or menstruation. It's it is threatening to our good health to hold something in our body that is no longer meant to be there.
Mhm. What about things that subtle impressions like that happen that you aren't, maybe even aren't aware are embedded in your body? I mean, is the practice of yoga just sort of naturally helps?
Like maybe you were traumatized by something, but you
Yeah.
didn't realize it. Because sometimes we disassociate, like sometimes we say, oh, that didn't bother me, but we're just not sensitive to the fact that it did bother us.
Or
I
that
don't
kind of
know.
almost becomes a very subtle form of PTSD, because if you aren't processing your emotions or only setting them aside so you can process them later, they get coagulated and literally become almost tangible in your fascia tissue. That's why physical practices can bring out some trauma without having to go through talk therapy and stuff, so it actually becomes
Right.
something physical.
Right.
Somatic.
And in Ayurveda, we have ama. And we don't want ama, leftover ama in the body. It travels around and settles in our joints or wherever, and it can cause, I mean, that's more physical, but also on an energetic level, we're not really meant to hold waste or what our body can't use in our body.
Mhm.
Right.
So. Okay,
Even old habits or behaviors.
yeah, well, habits or
Yeah.
behaviors, it becomes like kind of toxic to us if we
Yes.
don't. Yeah. When out of balance, we become easily depleted and susceptible to illness, fear, doubt, confusion, insecurity, and loss of purpose. You know, very, very connected with the first and second chakras.
Illness, fear, doubt.
So it says asana, all asanas can be supportive of Prana Vayus with focus on pelvic and lower abdominal containment and engagement. So, you know, all the things that we're doing, like squeezing and releasing, pressing with the legs into a block and release like we did today. And think about that, like when you're having people do Mula Bandha, or you're having them do a lower belly squeeze, or you're having them do whatever, it's just as important for them to release it as it is for them to squeeze it. Because a lot of times people won't really feel like that, and they'll be harsh with themselves. And it's, because remember, the energy is actually a release.
Mhm.
And this just helps, you know, activate both ways, you know, squeeze and release. And then, you know, I feel like anything where, you know, when we were doing bridge and we were feeling the energy down through the feet.
Mhm. I like that.
Or your standing poses where you're feeling energy down through the feet, where you're feeling grounded, helps you connect with Prana Vayus.
Like when we did the eagle.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
was
I mean, we were doing a little backward bend with that too, but yeah, the feet, you have to feel solid to be able to balance anyways. So, yeah. And they have, you know, some forward folding here, examples, wide-legged forward fold where you're feeling the feet. Tree pose is one that works on a couple actually. They have a lot of bound angle and places and poses where you have your feet pressing against one another too. Or you can see a locust pose. That's actually just because the pelvis is down on the floor, Shavasana, and you're, you know, lifting up from there. But you know, you feel like, you know, a lot of like we talked about like Svastikasana, where you have your feet pressing against your legs, and you have that collection there. That's all working with Prana Vayus.
So Janu Sirsasana, where we press the foot into the leg.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's creating a bandha. So you have to remember,
Which way is
we
it
are
going?
directing Prana there, but we are, you know, the natural flow of
Is
Prana
down.
is down. So if we're doing anything to draw everything up and in, we are working with pranayama. We're kind of reversing what is natural. We're drawing it up, we're redirecting it.
Sort of like they're thinking about opening up the pelvis, you know, with the wide-legged forward fold, tree pose,
Yes.
bound angle. And the only one that's not doing that is locust.
Yeah, but you're pushing your pelvis.
Your
down on the
pelvis.
floor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Belly.
So sort of opening up the hip area
Yeah.
a little bit,
Yeah. Mhm.
or the groin area.
Yeah.
How about frog? Half frog? Groin down?
Yeah. And remember how we did the thing where we did Dhanurasana today,
Yeah.
we pushed the pelvis and the legs down
Yeah.
rather than lifting them up.
Yeah, that was all different. Yeah, that was tricky.
Yeah, I was just trying to play with that a little bit.
We did.
Okay, so the last, you know, pranayama for Prana Vayus could be Kapalabhati, because it's a cleansing breath. We're cleansing in Kapalabhati. Even though you feel like it's in your lungs, it's still a cleansing breath. Any ideas about cleansing practices for Prana Vayus?
Well, some of those that, like where you swallow a cord, or what is it? They are, I mean, this is not what we teach here, right? Where some of the Kriyas,
Yeah.
where you suck water up into your,
Oh, in your body.
yeah,
Yeah, enemas and colonics.
Yeah.
All of, it's called Basti.
okay,
That is actually one of the chakriyas, and that is
Oh,
what you
it
would do
is.
for a Prana Vayus.
okay.
How about
Or you could just eat a lot of fiber and do it that way.
a
A
cleanse?
complete wash, a complete wash would do the same thing, yeah.
I mean, like a cleanse.
More pleasant.
Yeah,
And how about just drinking warm water in the morning?
warm water with lemon will stimulate
On an
the
easy
colon. I
level.
mean, the main thing is triphala would be something
Oh.
to help with a Prana Vayus.
What's
How does triphala help with that? Well, I mean, what is the action of triphala?
Triphala
I didn't
is-
notice any benefit.
You might not need it. It doesn't do a whole lot for me either, but what it does, it has 3 herbs that have different effects on the colon, and the primary one is Harataki. And it's the Vata one, and it actually tones the colon so that it is more effective, because sometimes our colon gets like misshapen because of stuff going through it.
Mhm.
So it helps to tone the colon, so it's effective.
And maybe does that work against spasms to tone it perhaps in an older
Perhaps.
population?
Yeah, perhaps.
Older than me.
Yeah, well, and you think older is usually more Vata, so that would be the helpful herb. It's a 3 fruits.
I don't have a spasm.
Yeah, but yeah.
Older than me, that's old.
I wonder also if like making sure you don't eat, like the different times you eat, so like doing the 12-hour fast. Yeah,
Yeah,
Oh, breakfast.
that just helps you digest and do all of those processes with the food that's already in there before you introduce more stuff.
more
in.
stuff, yeah.
Okay. So, the next one's Samana Vayu. This one is really connected with everything we've been talking about today. Where does it live?
Third chakra.
Yes, navel center.
Okay.
Wow.
It governs digestion. It's the energy that governs digestion, assimilation. So not just the stomach, the breaking down of food, but also the small intestines where you're assimilating the nutrients from it. So let's read what they say. The concentrating, absorbing, and consolidating movement of energy most active at the navel center. Its main function is assimilation of prana in all of its forms. Like a power station, collecting energy absorbed through breath, food, sensory perception, and mental experiencing, and processing it to empower all aspects of life. When in balance, we benefit from strong digestion, vitality, and balance at every level, and gain the clarity and courage to truly see ourselves, as well as the motivation and power to transform our habits and karmic tendencies. Wow, that's kind of all of what we've been working on this weekend. When out of balance, we struggle with digestion and assimilation and lack clarity and willpower. So, I feel like almost we don't need to, I think this is really like you guys have this because we were
Yeah.
just talking about it.
Mhm.
So the asana would be abdominals, twists, and Agnisara. Uddiyana Bandha is the pranayama or the bandha associated, and I think the pranayama they have here.
So Uddiyana Bandha is at the navel center or just below?
It's, in order to do Uddiyana Bandha, the stomach lift, it's the bandha, you have to have Mula Bandha engaged to be able to do it.
Because you gotta bring everything up.
Yeah, it's almost like a drawing up and underneath the rib cage. It's a lift. Yeah. And what we're gonna see is we now have Prana Vayu, the inward moving energy. We have Samana Vayu, the
transformative. It's a transformative energy. It transforms food, ideas, thoughts, and helps us assimilate them. So important. And we have a Prana Vayus, which helps us let go of things. So a lot of times what we're doing with our bandhas in our yoga class, or what we want to do, this is when we're working with pranayama, just since we have these ones already. These are the three we work with together all the time. So we have, it's a body, and we have prana coming in and down, moving in. I don't know if they can see that, but, and we have apana moving down. And what we do with Mula Bandha is this downward energy that we have, we rebound back up. That's apana. And so we're creating even more power and energy at the navel center at Samana Vayus. So that's what we're doing with all of our bandha work. When we're in Jambashirsasana, we're doing that. We're, or we're in tree, we're pushing the foot together, we're having a chin lock, we're engaging the navel center. So there's a rebound of energy up, and it contains all of the energy within this space. And we're working, that's more pranayama, it's controlling the prana. Because obviously apana doesn't go that way unless we're just telling it to. So that's a practice that we teach people in yoga.
Sweet. Sorry, I was just listening to my little piece, because prana, you have the arrow going down.
Prana goes in and down. Prana goes in, it's the in moving breath.
And
Yeah,
then apana is supposed to be downward moving energy.
yeah.
You have the arrow going down.
Well, because with
That's
prana,
redirecting.
it generally goes down, but we're redirecting it up.
Right.
And it's not like prana's not governing any downward forcing, downward
It's just
flowing thing.
inward.
It's just the way it comes into the body that way. And so it goes down, and then apana rebounds and comes up, and they meet in the middle where Samana Vayus is already. And they increase our transformative power. So when we want to transform, get clarity, and enter our pranic hub, that's why we do that. Does that make sense? So we work with these three.
So I'm thinking of a person with a physical issue related to Apana Vayus, like being constipated.
Okay.
So I think I'm getting confused by the down and rebounding up.
This is a yoga practice. This
Okay.
is not normally the way Apana functions.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
what we're doing in yoga is we are manipulating our prana, basically. We are redirecting our prana. It's not the way it usually goes. And think about that. If it doesn't usually go down, like if you're having a problem with Prana Vayus, do you really want to work with these practices? Not yet, not until you resolve the issue. So if someone's not
Okay.
feeling grounded, that's why we say don't work with pranayama until you've spend some time with a teacher and work with your practice, and you know that you're ready to do it, because if you redirect apana back up, is that gonna make you feel more grounded?
Yeah, that's why I was thinking, I was not realizing this is describing an advanced practice or a more,
This is where we're all working. We were all working on it today.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is how to get to balance, right? That's what you're saying.
No, this is actually how to move beyond and create more
Complex.
prana in our body. Yeah, so we always have, prana is the energy that we
I
have.
see you're taking the down flowing.
Yeah, and we're creating more, and this will create more energy at Samana Vayus, and
Okay.
more ability to transform, to assimilate, to digest. That's where we want to increase the energy. So those three work together a lot. Whenever we're doing, whenever we're just doing Mula Bandha, we're just working with apana in redirecting apana.
Mhm.
Whenever we're doing Jalandhara Bandha, you would think about maybe Udana Vayus, which we haven't gone to, but it's really keeping prana in.
Yeah, because it can't pass.
No,
Okay.
you keep it in and it's not going back out or up or anything like that. You're kind of creating like a closed system here.
But you're still breathing.
You're still breathing, yeah. Because these are not locks, the bonnets are not locks, they're just guides.
Yeah,
You're just directing. You don't want to be harsh, you don't want to be, locks is a bad word.
it's
Bad
lock and
translation
dam.
for that.
It's like flaps,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Or just a general redirection, like,
yeah,
you know, yeah, if you have water flowing in a certain way, you divert it, you know, put a rock there and make it go the other way.
yeah.
I like that word a lot better, the redirection.
Yeah.
Me too.
I think
Sounds less harsh.
it's less harsh, and I think it actually helps people do it correctly or understand what the bonds are about. They're not about cutting off energy at all, because we definitely want Apana to work, or we are not gonna feel good. We're gonna be having too much stuff clogging up our systems. Okay, so,
Quick
Yes.
question, simple question. So prana is inward flowing, apana downward flowing, so there's some direction.
Yeah.
Does samana have a direction to its flow?
it's more like a concentrating, collecting energy.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So does it go in a circle when it gets in there, or does it just?
I mean, it does different things, it governs, remember, it's just, you know, it governs the way our digestion is working physically and creates heat. You know, that warmth you feel when you're doing sometimes these practices.
Drinking hot buttered rum?
Yeah, that too. So, okay, so we have to get going here so we can do our pranayama and stuff here. So Udana Vayu is upward energy. It governs energy that moves up. So things like talking, it's going to govern. This is our expression, it's coming out most concentrated in the throat area. It also governs growth. Like we think we have like the thyroid gland in our throat, and that governs growth. It governs growth, expression, and even growth on like a, you know, not just a physical level. Spiritual, emotional, mental growth and expression. And it says here, the upward ascending flow of energy, most active in the region between the head and the heart, which would be the throat. Directs the flow of prana from the lower to the higher planes of consciousness. Yeah. You know, when we're in bridge pose and we have the hips up and they're resting and everything's kind of moving down through the heart, the throat, and the head. You're stimulating the higher centers of consciousness. When in balance, we are joyful, alert, articulate, and expressive. When out of balance, we become prone to negative, inappropriate, or excessive speech, are unable to express ourselves, and may have difficulty with the intake or use of nourishment. Yeah. Think about what happens when you can't express yourself. When you have something to say and it's not safe to say it. We just had the holidays. So maybe you found yourself in this situation.
Holding back. Really shot recently. It's just about the worst ever. And then you feel like when I finally was not in that, it was just exploding out of me. Literally, it just felt like I was exploding words because I had been muted for so long.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really hard not
Must have been.
to be able to express yourself or say what you need to say.
are told that your words are invalid or inappropriate, or your own expression is not allowed to exist.
Yeah,
Just have to cut those people off.
yeah.
They get under.
We have expressions like eat your words and,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, put your foot in your mouth and, but there is like, I guess part of expression, being articulate is able to being able to be heard. I had a client the other day and, he's been working with me for a long time and he was like, I really want my son-in-law to get into meditation. And I'm like, okay, well, why is that?
Yeah.
And it turns out
What's your mother?
son-in-law has struggles with alcoholism and he's been in multiple car accidents, has been to rehab, but is not able to just not able to address or find a way to feel calm about this issue. And my client is scared that something bad is gonna happen.
Oh my God, yeah.
And like the whole family's involved and like I said, there have not, I think just more than one rehab. But he was like, what can I say? And I was like, well, like thinking about it, truly, I was in the situation where my teacher advised me, sometimes it's better not to say, because if someone can't hear you, you are wasting your energy and it's very frustrating for both you and them.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be really, it's a delicate balance because you do want to say what's on your mind, but there is also, it can be an inability when you're articulate, it has the idea that it's landing somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it doesn't,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that can also be problematic. Yeah. And, sometimes people are unable to express themselves and that could be an out of balance Prana Vayus, but some people also can't stop expressing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that can also be out of balance in some way. So, yeah, those are the things that we look for with Prana Vayus. I think it's one of my favorites, probably because it's the one I need to work on. But and it's really pretty straightforward and common sense, the asana that we would use. So all of our inversions, when our head is bent, like our Sarvangasana, or our bridge, or all of those where the neck is bent, also Shirshasana, so any inversions of any kind.
Where it concentrates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also, what's that? Yes, yes.
What'd she say?
Fish pose.
Yeah.
Lion.
Yeah. That's great.
It's great. If you haven't done that and you had some holiday stuff, do one. It helps. So yeah, any of these things can help, with that. And Ujjayi is the pranayama.
Oh, that makes sense.
Struck me, Kate, in the description in the manual, imbalance, difficulty with intake or use of nourishment. I would figure that would be Samana Vayu. Can you say more about that?
You know what? I can't. That is curious. I don't know why that would be.
I could speak to that a little bit, because I was
Okay.
speaking about nourishment earlier, and this is just making me think that when I am feeling that way, when I can't nourish myself, it is specifically because of situations I was just talking about where I'm feeling muted or like I'm not allowed to exist. So then my creative power or my ability to express has been, and then I feel like I can't nourish myself
You
because
can't even take in.
yeah, because I don't
Okay.
have a right to exist according to what I'm receiving, the energy that I'm receiving. And if I believe that, which at times I have, I like I can't nourish myself because I feel like I'm not worthy of it.
Yeah.
And then I don't have energy to create or be a part of anything either. I don't know if that
Okay.
answers it exactly, but that's just what I thought of when you said.
Thank you, that does make sense, I mean, I think that like, you know, if we aren't able to express ourselves and we feel like we're invalidated, we may have then, might take some of that in and have trouble nourishing ourselves for sure. You know, cause I would have thought that might have been Prana Vayus. But
Oh, okay.
like I said, I actually, Prana Vayus and Udana also work together closely. So your downward dogs are kind of an inversion, they kind of work on both. Shirshasana, both. Even plank to some extent, I feel like with the way the neck is in that, works on both. So it could be that those two energies work together to help nourish us. Yeah,
Okay, no, thank you for the thoughts.
yeah, thanks.
Well, then an extended angle, you know, when you asked us to bring this up, you know, the chin kind of has to come back to get length in the back of the neck.
Mm-hmm.
Is that engaging it?
I think I would say more prana just because of the activation through the upper body, but you know, I think more, you know, when you're upside down or you're inverted or there's some kind of, you know, weight on a little bit more pressure on your throat area or condensing in the throat, even turning your head from side to side can be something you might do for Udana Vayus. But more like that, what I would say would be addressing that.
Or maybe the, you know, any upper back bend where you're also stretching out. your
Opening
neck.
through the throat. Yeah. Knees, chest, chin.
Oh, right.
I really like that one.
You're not alone. So
Yeah.
many people do. Okay. So let me talk about Jalandhar. You can read over this. Let's move on to Prana Vayus. This is like everywhere. It's everywhere. So, and the energy of this, the way it moves is it distributes things all around. So think about our circulation or think about the lymph moving from one, you know, circulating through the body. It moves things throughout. And so it says pervasive and expansive force governs the movement of prana through the nadis, movement of energy through the circulatory and nervous systems, and free flow of thoughts and feelings in the mind. Controls the muscular system, coordinates balance and regulates movement from the core to the periphery, permeates the entire body, but particularly active in the limbs, helping to implement the powers of locomotion and manipulation. When in balance, the Prana Vayus distributes energy throughout the entire body and removes obstacles to circulation of nutrition, energy, information throughout the entire body. When out of balance, the body and mind become disintegrated and weakened, resulting in disjointed efforts, physical illness, and feelings of alienation and anxiety. So what are the poses where we use our entire body? Standing, standing, but really reaching. You're gonna see a lot of like half moon, like really reaching poses out, warrior 2, you know, all the warriors actually, warrior 1, 2, and 3. Oh,
So this is like, there's inward, downward, absorption, assimilating, transform, and then upward and circulating.
Yeah,
Sounds like swirling.
Upward, downward, inward, outward, circles.
yeah, I mean, it's like, and you would want like maybe something, it doesn't, it's not like north, south, east, west, it's a little more complicated than that.
Yeah.
But you can see there's just we have different functioning in our body, if you think about it this way, we have different things that we need to have happen with our human body, and so we're gonna need different patterns to make that happen. We're not just squares.
So in many ways, like you were saying, with the half moon pose, it's anything where you're extending out.
Using the whole body. Yeah, and
Although
it says
you-
here, focus on various movements of the arms and legs with core strength. So it could be even, like, where we're moving things together, like, maybe leg swings.
Yeah.
Or arm swings, or maybe you're doing it together. Coordinate. Cultivate an inner focus of the energetic experience of the pose throughout the entire body. And that's one of the reasons the standing poses are so great for beginners. Remember when we talked about standing poses when, we're doing our 200 hour, they're grounding, but they're integrating because people have to use everything at the same time. Like there's a lot of different things and it helps with body awareness because they might not be used to doing that. You might remember the first time you did revolve triangle. I know I felt so awkward. I'm like, I don't even know what I look like in this. This is so weird because I wasn't used to using my limbs that way. So, they're looking at analoma, for pranayama, but I would say your Surya Vedi would be working the same way, which is just the advanced form. Okay.
How do you spell that? What you just said, you Surya Vedi.
Surya Vedi, sun, Surya, Surya, and Vedi means like pierce, Bhedhi. So it's that one that you've been working on.
Yeah.
It's also called pratyoloma.
Pranayama.
Pratyoloma.
Oh, Claudia. How many names does it have?
I mean, it's confusing, I know.
And then what's annuloma? If it's
Analoma, okay. Analoma just means on the same side. So you would take like maybe 6 breaths just on the right side. Relax.
Oh, that's a good way to teach.
Yeah, they usually teach analoma. And you can have, there's different, like you're gonna see it differently. Analoma sometimes you'll see like this. Well, you will if you see Sandy teaching it, because it's like this.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then there's one called Viloma, not to confuse you, but that's when you go, and then you switch nostrils, you come up. Oh, yeah.
So I've been doing a practice recently where it's similar like that, you inhale one side and just exhale the other. That movement
That's-
is just
No, this is specific. This
Okay.
is specific to, like, there's, yeah, it would be maybe a modification of that or
Sure.
something. Yeah, but these are ones that are really taught, it's part of the tradition through like the Yoga Sutra. These are the ones that help to prepare you for the breath retention. Basically what I did was I got to doing Vastika and made sure everyone could do it and then figured Surya Vedi, no alternate nostril, we can do this.
Yes.
Because I wanted to teach the next one.
Mhm.
And I know you guys have been practicing for a long time, so it's not like we can't move along here because there's a whole practice and I want to be able to practice it with you before you're doing it by yourself. Okay. Any questions about the, well, I'm sure there might be questions about the Prana Vayus, but do we need to go over anything else? Can you see how, even if you follow the Himalayan sequence, and we'll look at this a little closer, it works on the physical level, but it's also gonna work energetically, so that by the time someone does all those things, it has all those parts in it. So that by the time they rest in Shavasana, they will have addressed all the 5 pranas.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah,
So-
it is.
If,
So that's the answer to your question.
Prana,
Prana.
How does the Himalayan Institute describe or address prana? I can't remember the exact wording. Okay, I think I got it. That was.
yeah,
my
we're gonna
question.
look at sequencing a little bit closer in regards to that, so you guys can feel like you have that. But the only thing I wanna say is, Sanskrit, sometimes you're gonna hear things a little different, you might wonder why. This is how it's classically said in Sanskrit, but like if you talk to someone from India that speaks like Hindi, they're gonna drop the A on everything.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be prawn instead of prana.
Mhm.
It's gonna be a pawn instead of a pana. Udon. They'll also say asan, not asana.
Yeah, yeah.
So just so you
It's-
know, you'll hear it, so you know what they're talking about. Okay. All right. So, everyone okay? Ready to learn? You need a bathroom break? 5 minutes bathroom break. We're gonna learn the next pranayama. And then we're gonna do it.
What is it?
It's the combination of Vajragot and Ujjayi.
Oh,
Oh,
that's
okay.
what's it called?
Well, I can never pronounce it, so I'm getting it's like one where I'm like, oh, I just know what it is.
I like your phone color.
Oh, do you?
Red, is that?
Yeah,
a
it's
new-
red.
It's cool.
Thank
What do you have there?
It's just I
SE?
decided to get no, it's a,
The mini 13?
the mini, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good size.
And I'm
isn't
really
it?
glad I did, but I thought, because
The
my
other ones are
eye, it's hard to see sometimes, but I just voice text. I mean, I
Yeah.
just texted my daughter with it.
No, I have the SE, which is like the old.
Yeah, I love
Yeah,
the
it's-
little,
Yes, actually. What time are we done today?
7.
Oh.
Do you, well, you've been going long.
A lot of effort.
Hello.
Kate, are Graham or Abby doing, or Ohio State, or where does Purdue, are
Yeah.
they doing any modified, start?
Not yet, they're doing a lot of testing. For people to make sure that they. don't
Oh,
have
gotcha, okay.
What are those, Erin? These like little,
These
covered
are
raisins?
raisins, yeah.
Oh,
I would offer
wow.
them to everyone with the COVID
Oh, no.
situation. But yeah.
I've had my fill of chocolate.
Yeah.
I didn't know whether it was that
Cream
or
chocolate.
coffee beans.
Oh, yeah. If I could take the caffeine, it would be coffee, but
Uh-huh.
tasty.
Good that you can't.
Okey dokey.
Do you want me to stop and start again?
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
Where'd Eric?